Hello, listeners. This is another episode of Invest in Pomerania Business Untied podcast. Today, joining me is Vitalii Nuzhnyi from Ciklum. Hi, thank you for finding time for us. He's an RDH for Poland, Ukraine, and Bulgaria. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. Hello, listeners. So glad to be invited, and thank you for giving me an honor to be present in Invest in Pomerania podcast. So, looking forward to our discussion today. And the weather is so nice. It's looks like summer nowadays in Gdańsk. So,
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. That's something to think about the global warming because it's May and it's nearly 30 degrees, which is not something that we're used to here in Poland.
everything of that could be treated as a positive vibe, right? So you
Sure.
may think of, well, I know that local people don't usually like a lot of tourists, but warmer weather would mean higher incomes because the
Sure.
prolonged period of swimming possible into the sea and so on.
Sure. I'm not sure that farmers feel the same way, but as long as it's raining alongside the hotness, it's good. Okay, so that was our introduction. Very productive. So, jumping into our questions. For those of you who live in a world that they do not know what Ciklum actually is or does, well, it's a huge custom product engineering company. That's from your website. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure,
Is that an
absolutely.
accurate?
Yeah, nowadays we prefer to say it's a engineering experience company.
Mm?
So we basically create what people in the world experience when they deal with this or that software product. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm. And you have about 4,000 highly skilled developers working in over 10 countries. So, um, taking from that, how does the how has the IT market changed in the last 2 years? Because obviously everyone knows and everyone was talking about a little hiccup, so to speak, that the IT market
Mhm.
has gone through for the last year. So from your perspective, it's such a big and global company working on three different continents. How has it been for Cyklum for the last 2 years?
So you're very right. So much so Poland is actually at the heart of our engineering because of the high caliber of expertise that is available here. So, for example, like in fintech, it's one of our R&D hubs, and we are working for a number of Fortune 500 companies here. Uh, in terms of the market, definitely we all so much so were experiencing COVID that transformed us from in office, and also quite a lot of clients were thinking only in office kind of work, specifically in the markets like in Germany, or if we talk about banking, which is huge. Also here in Poland, a lot of service centers for major financial institutions are here. We're shifting the paradigm that remote is possible, and we were, well, not, I would not say it overnight, but over quite a limited number of days a week we just shifted to remote. Nowadays we live in a post-COVID era. So from one hand side, governments have been pouring a lot of money into investments that we have seen through VCs everywhere. So the IT has been booming, multipliers have been skyrocketing, and so on. Then what we see now is the normalization of that. So we don't have as much money as we used to have before available in funds, also public funds, private funds, and so on. People are more so much so selecting, set of technologies, which everybody knows. This is AI, cloud, cyber security. uh, and we see that demand for each and every of those areas is actually growing. From one hand side, uh, because of the COVID, we've seen a lot of e-commerce, and the it has been booming. So probably a lot of companies over-invested and overstaffed. So we see some correction. Like all the major global players have hired more people in the anticipation that it may continue, but actually when the COVID ended, it normalized, so they had to make some redundancies. And that affected the market because these people were available in the market as well. But I think so much so it is also could be the expectation, some uncertainties, a lot of elections this year. This all affect that okay, let's better wait and see for some types of the clients. From another hand side, what I see within our clients, it is very dynamic. Uh, it's always how you win the competition. So basically, if your company strategy clearly saying that part of your winning strategy, how to beat the competition, is to come up with a new innovation, with a new product, new approach to client, new experience that you should create for your customers, this is the way to go, and companies continue investing in it. And it's as urgent and as important as it always has been for them. I would like to say that, so for example, some of the areas, like I mentioned, cybersecurity will likely see a double-digit growth this year. And this is so much so we see and we may hear that, though not so much seen in public, there are cybersecurity wars ongoing, which actually means that whenever we are doing some more digitalization of all the processes, we move our process more so much so into the clouds. We are more and more integrating each and every aspect, including critical infrastructure, government services, within the electronics means of communication, so much so could relate also to voting in some countries. Cybersecurity is on the rise, so we always have to be mindful how do we do it. So that's why I think this is one of the top areas nowadays for investment, for product development, so much so for consulting and so on. There is a forecast that actually should be 8% increase in 2024, and this is also what we see talking to client, whereas there is somewhat more discussions that we are having this year as compared to the last year. So people tended probably more to wait, some of the companies, for some of the decisions and so on. Nowadays, again, there are usual cycles. So for example, end of year, second half of the year, some of the specifically larger companies, they tend to optimize budgets. So we may see more reductions Q4 and Q3 maybe, and much more into Q4. But then when the new year starts, you have to perform, you have to beat the competition, you have to deliver the product actually. It's not about cost efficiency anymore. So you will see an increase in hiring and spike in demand and so on. And then it repeats, right? So every year this cycle, because start of the year is more active, and then the very end of the year is less active. Anyway, as I mentioned, we pretty much so see all the trends, cloud, AI, and cybersecurity, as the one that would be driving the market growth as well as Ciklum growth.
Okay, so your statement was so magnificent that it raised a couple of questions in my head, but you've mentioned it a couple of times cybersecurity. Is there more than meets the eye that gets out to the public in terms of, well, are we in the middle of cyber warfare nowadays?
Sure, I think it is, but how you may tell that it's going or not ongoing? It's not so much so visible to the public, right?
Right.
And we may also hear it when only client customer data is exposed for the public company, but we don't hear it much of it anymore in any other occasion. So I may assume, from what I know and much more from what I don't know, right, that it is a major thing.
Okay. And you have, well, you've mentioned you have a broad portfolio of clients. You mentioned e-commerce and logistics and so on.
Fintech.
Fintech It's very interesting, by the way. But from your perspective, is the global market uh, rather interested in providing services or providing the products? Do your clients expect rather services that are well widely designed and just acceptable by a couple of customers, or do they demand the product that is designed strictly for themselves? How do you approach the clients?
So I think it goes, well, there could be different kind of products. If we talk about software as a service, for example, there is definitely a target marketing segment of customers that should be using the software for this or that use. So yes, we mostly do services. If we analyze what is our legal relationship with our clients, it's this provision of the services. However, the way how we work, how we engineer work, is actually product mentality. So
Okay.
if we don't have it, then it's, it just mere could reside to stuffing, and this is not what we do. So we employ a number of product owners, as well as business functional analysts, as well as experience designers. So somebody who can consult client on what the product should look like. So basically, go through the whole customer journey, how to build out what would be perceived on the market. Now the difference is, if you want to win a client, it should be better in each and every regard, starting from the UI UX, so how the product look like, touch and feel, and how easy would be to use a product. There are so many products that are not so much useful, and definitely we experience it every day, right? So in our interactions with the outer world. From another hand side, there is a portion of internal software that we do, specifically within the internal automation, like Power BI and so on. So basically, we help companies to be more efficient, and this is so much so a trend as well at the moment, specifically using some elements of AI and Gen AI and so on, just to help understand and massage the data and make sense of it. So companies, specifically all kind of enterprises, including large financial institutions, insurance companies, logistics companies, travel companies, they have already a lot of data that should be, arranged somehow into a data warehouse, then data that, as it was called before, data lakes, and then we should make some sense of it. What is the business decision that we can derive having so much data about what our clients buy, how do they make their choices, what drives them, what is the dynamics. And specifically, if we talk about large, sizable, multi-million business, it is the core essence of their efficiency to understand what's going on with their interactions with the client. What is happening on the front line, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how big a part of your business is this consulting part or pre-engineering part?
So I think we usually tend to start with a full-fledged discovery phase, when we, from one hand side, has someone who is helping to come up with the experience design. So basically, experts in look and feel, new current trends, how to outbid the competition from usability perspective. Then here comes the technology advisory. So what is this? It's usually solution architecture. So and we employ a number of high-end, seasoned consultants in this area. So basically, all modern stack of technologies, including so much so like cloud, Gen AI, and we have already a track record, so we know what works, and can advise a client depending, because each and every case is so much different. And then it is important to understand that client clearly gets all the requirements. So basically, functional business analysis, so much so that do they have a product owner? Do they have the product roadmap? So we help them come up with a high-level roadmap. We do an estimate in terms of what the technology stack they should be using, what are the other systems they're using at the moment, and how it should be integrated and going forward, so it would become part of a client ecosystem. Or we understand that, so for example, it's often the case that the existing stack is outdated, and it's pretty common. How we move it out somewhere else, could be cloud migration, for example, and so on.
It sounds like the client satisfaction is something you value very highly, and well, it's very well. It sounds like your approach is very wise and very well down to earth.
So I think
it's admirable.
So I think if we talk about client satisfaction, client should be happy, but it's not about so much so pleasing the client.
Right.
It is what should work. So we are not afraid to say, this is they see that what you want is not so much so feasible. So let's explore other options. This is exactly why we need to have a discovery, few weeks discovery, just to lay out the ground and understand what and how we should be doing. And then one more important point is the domain expertise. I don't talk about narrow stack of technologies or frameworks or whatever. I talk about industry domain expertise. So for example, one of our clients is TUI. So then it means that we understand the travel from within, right? So what are the processes? What is the end user journey? How do we, for example, what is happening? There are multiple stages. There are probably 20 or different ways how a client can interact for different purposes. So it's not only like before selecting where a person should go, then go in there, and then the after, what is happening after? How do we treat this client so he or she or they will come back again and use our services? So all different elements, they should be put together. And unless you did something in this industry, that might be difficult to advise a client. So you have to be expert also, I would say, vertically. Same true for fintech, right, or banking, or any other area.
That's good that you're so experienced as a company. And well, if we can please take a little turn from the business route to the kind of an inside talk. I'm just curious because Ciklum is around the block for more than a decade, right? Mm-hmm. So what do employers expect nowadays what do you expect from your employees nowadays? And from the other side, what your employees expect from you, or what do you assume that the new generation, Gen Z and so on, that they could be expecting from you as an employer?
So one of there is an elephant in the room, which is, should we be working from the office again?
Right.
Or remote, which pretty much become, before, for many years, we've been talking about work-life balance, which is, should we work straight 8 hours and call it a day? Or what if something happens, and so on and so forth. Nowadays, the paradigm of life and work balance shifted, because if you work remotely, it is allowing you to have your work and family and life balance, and some time for yourself and your well-being, so much so than ever before. So now this is a new default.
Right.
From another hand side, there are a lot of talks what you should be doing if you're doing a true R&D project, and not any kind of means of online communications or meeting that can replace it. So you have to meet for a workshop.
Right.
This is so much true to some extent for that I mentioned, discovery of new projects and design. So it's basically ideation phase, right? So ideation phase, you might be, so in person would be better. So my expectation is that people, if we talk about software engineering, quality assurance, analytics, and so on, will be considering having a day in the office at least, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe going forward 2 days in the office. I understand that nowadays it's impossible and it's not mandated in most of the roles and requirements, as we hire here in Poland. However, going forward, I believe that it would be more beneficial to have like a day in the office, like let's say Thursday or whatever the day is in the office. Also, if we think about ecosystem, if somebody is starting their career after the university, student, intern, and so on, it is so difficult to do it remotely. So if your mentor is remote, it just takes you 2, 3, 4 times longer. You can't ask small questions online all the time or be expect to be replied. So if you want to jumpstart your career, you should go for an office first, as much as well, that's a sheer advice, and we have tried it differently. It works, but slower. So so this thing about remote and online, and I know a lot has been talked about like online fatigueness. So somebody who is tired of Zoom, Google Meet, and you name it, because you can stay focused only as much as, right? And if you have 1 or 2 meetings a day, that's fine. But if you have 8 or 9, that it's becoming more and more difficult to sustain. So that's one. Second part in regards to Gen AI, I guess everybody should learn the prompt engineering
Right.
and understand how it works. And also things like Copilot, we actively use and did a number of experiments working with or without it, and it definitely is the case. There are other elements, which is ethics, like what could or could not be used, and if you give away your data, so can you? There are a lot of legal implications depending on the end client business. So some clients are fine with using some of the tools, and we know which to advise depending on the case, and some not.
Really,
Because of
ethically.
no, because so much so if you use some of the data and just on one of the open platforms, your case could be reused further. Like for example, my journey, right? You submit your photo to be tuned, and your photo is forever
Right.
in the database. So, and this
Right.
is, and if you need to tune, so let's say you're a designer, and you need to do it, and it's so helpful. So, so for example, you do a discovery phase, and you want to do some conceptual designs. So, mind journey generation for conceptual design is just perfect, because you don't need to be precise, and you need a
Right.
true designer job as usual. But on that very first phase, first 30% of the efforts could be so optimized with AI even nowadays. We will be seeing more and more practical use cases of how Gen AI could be used, but you have to be mindful. So, what are the consequences? Where is the data might end up with? Are we not sharing any potentially confidential data that just understanding the whole workflow, how the data goes, who is using what, and so on? So that it is not that straightforward, because sometimes you use some of the tooling as if a black box. So you
Right.
provide something for the input and you get the output, and you think the magic happens in between. It's not. So there could be a set of different uh, services that, and how do they treat your data? We should care more than probably we can now.
That's a healthy approach, I would say. Uh, Heading to the end, let's talk a little about you. How does it feel to provide business and oversee the business for three different countries, different business like different cultural wise.
So it's very interesting for me, and myself personally, I started working with Poland since 2010. In my prior experience before this company, we opened a service center for UBS as a bank in Krakow.
Mm-hmm.
Then I helped open for another client, Nordea, in 2016. So we were probably several hundred men strong. I've been building this organization in Krakow over 5 years. In Nordea, we managed to attract 200 engineers locally, and that was on the year number 1 here.
Okay.
So I know quite a bit of the local culture, and worked a lot with the leadership in Poland. It is important to mention that each and every culture, and if you follow, there is Erin Mayer, one of the leading writers and scientists in terms of each and every business culture is different. So, for example, if you talk about UK, from the education, people from the school time, they tend not to give direct negative feedback. So, in order to understand that this feedback is negative, you need to be, trained how to clarify that it is actually bad or it is still good. It's not so straightforward. On the contrary, for example, if you work with friends, they're very straight in their negative feedback, so they sometimes perceived as a very negative people, but that's not so much so. This is how they taught in school. Just be very straightforward. So, so my aim is to explain the differences by myself, and I have a vast experience. I used to work with Vietnam, I used to work with Mexico, so I understand the different elements of it. And this is often the case when what is actually meant. And as usual, in each and every situation, in order to resolve any conflicts that might arise in misunderstanding, you just need to show a helicopter view. What is the bigger picture? And communication is everything. Mm-hmm. So respecting the cultural differences, understanding what they are, and this is just the social norms in each and every country, helps to build a more trustful ecosystem. So basically, if you aim for trustful atmosphere in your team, that helps also to be transparent if there are any issues that arise. How do we tackle the challenges? And guess what? We are working in a very challenging and complex environment nowadays, and our issues are not easy, right? So we need to deal with it to be better for clients, so clients would be happy, as I mentioned already. Client satisfaction is one of the utmost criteria that we measure.
Well, it's a very interesting challenge, right? To know and to get to know different working cultures and different approaches to education, feedback, and so on and so on. One last thing, I understand you've lived in Tri-City before. How are your memories? What can you tell us about the experience?
So it's a lovely city. I lived through October to March, so just half a year. So not so much so during the summertime. So I experienced that part of it. From another hand side, it's a very unique climate. It is actually very healthy. I mean, it is a resort not from a touristic perspective of the sea, but the climate. So I have some of my colleagues who were having some health conditions coming here, and they got going away over some months. So this is actually a very good place to live, to work, to have and raise your kids, right? So this is, so I enjoyed the city and its vibe. And for me, there is, so I feel that I get more, and I travel quite a lot. So I love coming here. It's a very good energy, despite, sometimes it's windy, but otherwise there's a lot of good energy in the city, and it helps doing business.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. My thank you for the talk. Thank you for your time. I think it was very interesting, and I'm not saying that just at the end of every podcast that we do. My guest today was Vitalii Nuzhnyi from Ciklum. Thank you for your time. And that was a Business Untied podcast by Invest in Pomerania. Till the next time, thank you.
Thanks for having me. All the best.